Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. At a National Council meeting on Sunday, the 28th of February, in the form of a virtual event via Zoom, the United Workers' Party Council ratified the nomination of Vincent London, who will contest the election for a chance to represent the constituency of Vieux-Fort North. Hot 7 TV News spoke to London, who says he believes he is the man to bring some much-needed change to the constituency.
The people of Vieux-Fort North, obviously, they have been under the Labour Party leadership for almost 50 years now, and they have not seen the kind of growth that other constituencies, for example, Soufrière, Biko South, and others, Brozile, have had. So the people of Vieux-Fort North have grossly been underrepresented for the entire life from the time we became independent. So this is a change. There's a lot of Labour fatigue that we were supposed to enjoy as they call us, the jewel in the crown of the Labour Party, that has never materialized in Vieux-Fort North. And so the people are looking for the change that is needed. And I am proudly, I will repeat this, running on the ticket of the United Workers' Party to bring the necessary change and the kind of leadership that they are looking for.
London says he is definitely the man for the job, as he is born and bred in Vieux-Fort and has worked to boost his community for as long as he can remember.
Vincent London is proudly from the community of Belleville, Vieux-Fort. Some people call it the cultural capital of St. Lucia. And so I grew up around that area. I went to school at the Belleville Combined School, became a teacher at the Belleville Combined School, taught for a while there, and then went across to the Hirano International Airport, where I spent about 26 years in the hospitality and tourism industry. I am indeed bred and born and have participated in all of the various committees within the Belleville Fort North area, including the Disaster Preparedness Committee, Belleville General Committee, the Human Resource Development Committee, church choir, church leader, you name it. I was involved greatly in the formation of many of the groups, Belleville Parent Teacher Association. So it is, my involvement spans decades within the community and by extension Vieux-Fort North. And there's not a community in Vieux-Fort North that I have not gone through or that I don't know.
London was chosen by unanimous vote of the UWP Council members. They have expressed full confidence in their choice and the ability of London to represent Vieux-Fort North with distinction. Meanwhile, Vieux-Fort North MP Moses Jabatis has vowed that this coming general election, he is not going to take the people of his constituency for granted. During a Tuesday morning press conference, the incumbent MP was asked whether he is still confident in retaining his seat by defeating London. He responded by saying the power is in the hands of the people.
I will continue to do the hard work. Elections, you can never take elections for granted. And every single opponent of mine, I have never taken them for granted. So we are working to convince the people that they should continue to support the St. Lucia Labour Party and reject whoever comes for the United Workers' Party in Vieux-Fort North, because they are just like Prime Minister Chasney. This gentleman is just like Prime Minister Chasney. He's already acting like Prime Minister Chasney, going around the place, dealing with government-funded programs as if they are working for the government. Lots of things are happening in Vieux-Fort North which suggest and which show clearly that they are just like Prime Minister Chasney, selling all of our lands. In Pierrot, for example, they are selling all the people's lands, removing them. Farmers from the lands at Pierrot, at Grace, they are doing a mess with the lands at Grace. People cannot, people may not be able to afford to purchase where they live in Vieux-Fort North. And therefore, I look forward to this campaign.
Jabatis says he is certain that the people of Vieux-Fort North will be discerning and will come to the best conclusion when comparing the SLP's work in the constituency versus the work of the UWP.
The people of Vieux-Fort North, many of whom are farmers, banana farmers, have been let down by this government. Look, yesterday was Monday, the 1st of March, and Windfresh Limited There's a petition in the courts to dissolve Winfresh Limited. We had an opportunity with Winfresh to not only sell bananas, but also expand agriculture, the sales of agricultural produce through the fair trade movement in the UK. The United Workers' Party has seen the demise of that. Many people in Vieux-Fort North are fishers. Their relatives are fishers. They fish at Savans Bay and the landing port is in Vieux-Fort and Savans Bay and so on. They are sea moss farmers and so on. And many of these families have been let down by this government. They pay $1.50 in gas tax and so on. So the United Workers' Party has caused the people of Vieux-Fort North and the rest of St. Lucians to become poor.
The St. Lucia Labour Party has held on to the Vieux-Fort North seat since 1997. UWP PRO and talk show host Norbert Williams has defended the actions of health officials following expressed concern by talk show host Claudius Francis. Francis took government officials to task for allegedly giving preferential treatment to party supporters whilst overlooking frontline workers in the COVID-19 vaccination campaign. Williams says what transpired on the first day of vaccination was merely standard procedure. Nisha Charles tells us more in this report.
The Ministry of Health's COVID-19 vaccination campaign has brought with it much scrutiny. According to talk show host Claudius Francis, known government supporters were given special treatment and were vaccinated ahead of frontline workers. The ministry announced that the first phase of vaccines would go to highest risk healthcare and frontline workers, people 65 years and older, and people living with chronic conditions. Here's what Francis had an issue with.
When, up to yesterday, several medical professionals have not been vaccinated, and we have government employees whose political allegiance is to the United Workers' Party being vaccinated, the Prime Minister has a duty to come out and explain that. He must come out and explain how is it that regular people, and I use the word regular advisedly, which is not to suggest anybody is less than anybody else, in the context that we are speaking. It was blasted all over Facebook with pictures of regular public servants whose political allegiance is known getting the vaccine before doctors, before nurses, before police officers, before prison officers, before fire officers. No matter who you support, that cannot be right.
Talk show host Norbert Francis has sought to explain what transpired that day, saying that a decision had to be made in an attempt to not waste COVID-19 vaccines.
There were a number of police officers, nurses, and other essential workers who were scheduled to receive their vaccines last week, Wednesday, okay? The 17th. However, as can happen, a number of those people who were scheduled to be there on that day were not. And as a result, there was a few shots over what they had brought to administer to the essential workers. Once these have been punctured for sterility, for safety, to avoid contamination, once these are punctured, if you do not administer all of the doses, in this case, 10 doses can be administered from that vial. As long as you don't do that, you can't take it back. So because of that policy, because of that protocol, once all the essential workers who had turned up received their vaccines, there were a few doses left. And they asked for volunteers. Anybody here who would like to get the vaccine, we will give it to you.
The National Immunization Manager Tekla Jabatis confirmed last week that indeed the ministry will take the opportunity to vaccinate others on any particular day once all those within the vaccination group are dealt with and doses are left over. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
Thank you, Nisha. Students taking the Caribbean Examination Council CXC exam this year will be required to sit the necessary 3 components. And if all goes well, both the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination (CAPE) and the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate (CSEC) examinations will begin on the 14th of June and end on the 16th of July. CXC's Chief Executive Officer and Registrar Dr. Wayne Wesley made the announcement during an online meeting of CARICOM Ministers of Education on the administration of the 2021 CAPE and CSEC examinations. This change comes after regional ministers of education and officials of the CARICOM Secretariat met to discuss the way forward. In a previous interview with Hot 7 TV News, a former principal of the St. Mary's College, Rowan Sion, expressed the view that the 2020 CXC exams and CAPE exams were disastrous.
Last year, CXC only had the multiple choice exams and eliminated the long answer papers, with the argument being that it would require less presence in a room to answer multiple choice question paper than to have the long answer script where you have to sit down and write for 2 and 3 hours. That's part of the rationale for that. But it ended up with there being major criticisms of the validity of the exam. People were very uncomfortable with the results. They thought the results did not reflect the ability of the students. And remember the uproar there was?
Reggae enthusiasts the world over were plunged into mourning on Tuesday when news broke of the death of reggae legend Bunny Wailer. The longtime standard bearer of reggae music had been in hospital since having a stroke last July. Bunny Wailer, whose real name is Neville O'Reilly Livingston, was a Jamaican singer, songwriter, and percussionist. He was an original member of the reggae group The Wailers, along with Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. ICAR president and activist Aaron Alexander says the world has lost a true icon.
It is indeed a sad day for us here and Rastafari communities all over the world to learn of the passing of one of our elders, Brother Bunny Wailer, the last survivor out of 3 great spirits, that of Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, and himself, Bunny Wailer, the original Wailers, making his exit at this time to the great beyond. It is a sad day for us within the Rastafari community because of his contribution to consciousness the world over.
Alexander says that while Bunny Wailer's contribution to the Rastafarian community was mostly in Jamaica, St. Lucians were also grateful for his impact.
We thank the Almighty for having sent such a spirit within the earth, within the world, to educate the nations in the spirit of consciousness, and also to point to the nation the right way that we should go in the spirit of Africa and follow in the footsteps of our ancestors. So it is up to us now to cause his example to live on and to carry on the works where he has stopped, because it is always the responsibility for each succeeding generation to carry on the works that are unfinished by the ancestors.
Livingston was the last surviving member of the Wailers following Bob Marley's death from cancer in 1981 and Peter Tosh's murder during a robbery in 1987. Now let's take in a video montage of some of Bunny Wailer's biggest hits.
No one will tell you what's to wrong the street. But that would happen when the robot has been get sweet. Your love is so tight, you don't even know when it's morning. The music's so right, you don't even care about this dawn. How does it feel to have been on the ballroom floor? Or do you feel like you would have rocked some more? For a strictly rap battle, what's up? And the dub and the wax, I know. You know. So you can you. Me say feel rolling, come on and tune in. I said to ride, cause this your session is vital. Hey, me say be Trixie, Come along, come along, come along, come and tune in. I said to Robbie, for this shall bring the title. Hey, and it's a cool running. And now down Chicago nights, tell you it's a cool running. The rhythm and the drip like sugar and spice.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more news coming up after the break.